The wall has been longer than the building. That's what the landlord told me when I moved in. Old red brick, rough and uneven, running along the back edge of the property like a boundary someone forgot to remove. My apartment backs up to it so closely that my living room window sits less than a meter away. No alley, no space, just brick. It's ugly, but the rent is cheap. That's why I'm here. I work contract jobs. Nothing stable. Gaps between paychecks. Breaking Miss Lease would mean sleeping in my car again, and I promised myself I wouldn't do that another winter. So I stay. I keep my head down. I don't complain. The wall was never an issue at first. No graffiti, no noise, no movement. Just brick and mortar and the occasional spiderweb catching moonlight. I barely noticed it anymore, which is probably why it took me a few weeks to realize something was wrong. It started with the reflection. One night, a little after 3 a.m., I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone, lights off except for the TV glow. I glanced toward the window out of habit, expecting to see my own reflection layered over the dark glass. Instead, I saw a room. Not my living room, a different one. It was faint, barely there, like a reflection that didn't quite line up with reality. A pale square of light where only brick should have been. I leaned closer. The image vanished. I chalked it up to exhaustion. I'd been sleeping badly for months. Stress does weird things to your eyes, makes shadows look intentional. The next night, I saw it again. Clearer this time. A window. Rectangular. Old glass, slightly warped, set directly into the brick wall behind my apartment. That shouldn't be possible. There's no space back there, no building, no room. The wall is solid. I've touched it. I've leaned ladders against it. There's nowhere a window could belong. Still, there it was. And behind the glass, someone was standing. A man. He didn't move, didn't press his face to the window, just stood there in the dim light, hands at his sides, head slightly tilted, watching my living room. I froze. The rational part of my brain tried to take control immediately. Reflection, old glass playing tricks, a neighbor's light bouncing at the wrong angle. But reflections don't look back at you. I took a step closer. The man's eyes followed me. I backed away so fast I nearly tripped over the coffee table. When I looked again, the window was gone. Just brick. Cold, flat, unbroken. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I went outside and examined the wall in daylight. No outline, no seam, no sign of glass or framing. Just solid brickwork, patched and repointed decades ago. I asked the landlord about it later that week, trying to sound casual. "There's no structure behind the wall, right?" I asked. He frowned. "Never has been. That wall used to be the back of something a long time ago. Got sealed off." "Sealed off from what?" He shrugged. "Old city stuff. Don't worry about it." That should have been enough. It wasn't. At exactly 3 a.m. the next night, the window came back. This time, the man was closer to the glass. I could see more detail. His face was thin, colorless. His clothes looked outdated, not old-fashioned exactly, just wrong, like they belonged to a time that didn't exist anymore. He smiled when he saw me notice him, not wide, not threatening, expectant. I turned on every light in the apartment. The window vanished instantly. I didn't sit in the dark after that. I kept the lights on, kept busy, told myself that if it was some weird optical illusion, it needed darkness to work. At 3 a.m. the following night, the window appeared anyway. The lights didn't matter. The man raised his hand, and slowly, carefully, he tapped the glass. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound didn't come from outside. It came from inside my apartment, right behind me. I spun around so fast my neck popped. Nothing was there. My living room was exactly how I'd left it. Couch, coffee table, TV paused on a dim screen, the front door locked, the hallway dark and empty. But the tapping continued. 3 slow knocks, not on the window, on the inside of the wall, directly behind where the couch sat. I backed away until my calves hit the armrest. The sound wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive. That was the worst part. Whoever was making it wasn't trying to get my attention. They already had it. I pressed my ear to the wall. The brick should have been cold, solid, dead. Instead, it was faintly warm. I pulled back like it burned me. The tapping stopped. When I looked at the window again, the man was still there, closer now, close enough that I could see imperfections in the glass, tiny bubbles, warping that bent the edges of his face slightly, stretching his smile just enough to make it feel intentional. He raised his hand again. This time, he didn't tap. He rested his palm against the glass. I did the same without thinking. The glass fogged under his hand. So did the wall under mine. That was when I noticed the room behind him wasn't empty. There was furniture, old mismatched pieces, a chair pulled back from a table, a lamp casting weak yellow light, dust hanging in the air like it hadn't been disturbed in years. It looked lived in, occupied. He leaned closer to the glass, his breath clouding it. "I can see you better now," he said. The sound didn't travel through the window. It came from the wall. I staggered back and grabbed my phone. Full signal, no missed calls, no notifications. I tried to record video. The screen showed nothing, just brick. No window, no man, no light. When I lowered the phone, the window was still there. He watched me fumble with it, amused. "You don't remember," he said. "Remember what?" My voice sounded thin even to me. "When this was my side." The lights in my apartment flickered. For a split second, the layout of my living room felt wrong. Walls stretching too far, corners rounding where they shouldn't. The smell changed. Old wood, damp plaster. I saw it then. Not clearly, not fully. Another version of my apartment overlapping this one. Older, smaller, cramped. The brick wall wasn't a wall there. It was an interior divider. The window wasn't facing outside. It was facing another room. His room. I slammed my back against the opposite wall, heart hammering. "There's nothing back there," I said. "I checked." He nodded slowly. "There wasn't anything on your side either. Not at first." The tapping started again. Not from one place, from multiple points along the wall. Soft, patient, like fingers testing for thin spots. I realized then why it always happened at 3 a.m. The city was quiet, traffic gone, power usage low. The building settled into itself, old materials relaxing just enough. The wall was weakest then. The man's smile widened. "I'm almost through," he said. "You've been standing in my living room for weeks." A thin line appeared in the brick. Not a crack, a seam, perfectly straight, vertical, as if something invisible was being slid aside from the other end. I grabbed my keys and ran. I didn't turn off the lights, didn't lock the door. I bolted down the stairs and didn't stop until I hit the street, lungs burning, head spinning. I slept in my car that night. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a text. "You left the window open." I didn't look back at the building, but I knew. I knew the wall was thinner now, and I knew he wasn't watching my living room anymore. He was waiting for me to come home. I didn't go back the next day, or the day after that. I told my boss I was sick. Then I told him my car broke down. Then I stopped answering altogether. I slept in parking lots and rest stops, waking up every hour to check the time, my heart racing every time it crept close to 3 a.m. Nothing happened the first 2 nights. No texts, no tapping, no sense of being watched. That almost convinced me I'd imagined it. Almost. On the 3rd night, I dreamed of the wall. Not the brick side, the other side. I was standing in a narrow room lit by a single lamp. The air felt stale, thick with dust that coated my tongue when I breathed. The furniture was old and mismatched, exactly like I'd seen through the window. A chair pulled back from a small table. A couch positioned too close to the wall. My couch. I stepped toward the wall and pressed my hand against it. It wasn't brick. It was drywall. Thin. Flexible. Warm. Something pressed back. I woke up choking, my palm burning where it had touched the steering wheel. At 2:59 a.m., my phone buzzed. A voicemail. No number, no duration listed. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The notification disappeared on its own at exactly 3:01. That morning, exhaustion finally beat fear. I needed a shower, clean clothes, a real bed. I told myself I'd grab my things and leave for good. I wouldn't stay the night. I wouldn't sit in the living room. I wouldn't look at the wall. I'd be in and out. The building looked the same as always. Quiet. Normal. A few cars in the lot. Curtains drawn. Nothing out of place. Inside my apartment, the air smelled wrong. Not rotten. Not musty. Lived in. The couch cushions were slightly indented. The coffee table had a faint ring where a mug had been set down. The remote was on the armrest instead of the table where I always left it. I stood in the doorway, keys still in my hand, telling myself I'd done this, that I was misremembering. Then I heard the chair, scraping softly, from behind the wall. Not dragging anymore. Adjusting. I didn't look at the window. I didn't need to. "I fixed it while you were gone," the man's voice said calmly. It was easier once you stopped resisting. The lights flickered. The wall rippled. Not cracked, not broke. Rippled like fabric being shaken out. I backed toward the door, but the knob wouldn't turn. It wasn't locked, it just refused, like it no longer belonged to me. You kept coming into my place, standing where my furniture should be, watching through my window. My stomach dropped. The room felt smaller now, the ceiling lower, the corners tighter. I waited years, then you moved in. The wall began to thin. I could see shapes behind it, furniture outlines bleeding through, the faint glow of that weak yellow lamp. Then the window appeared, not behind the wall, in it, embedded halfway through, glass bulging inward, frame fused with brick and drywall both. He was inches from me now, not separated by glass, separated by habit. You don't need to leave anymore, he said gently. You already live here. My phone vibrated in my pocket. One last text. 3 a.m. The wall sighed, and something shifted, slow and deliberate, as if two rooms were finally agreeing on where the boundary should be. I don't remember the wall breaking. There was no crash, no shower of bricks, no noise you could point to and say that's when it happened. It was more like a decision being made. The room shrank in a way that didn't involve movement. The air thickened. The smell of old dust and stale warmth replaced the clean, empty scent I'd grown used to. I felt pressure in my ears, like descending too fast in an elevator. The window finished forming, not pushing through the wall anymore, not halfway between spaces. It settled, perfectly flush, as if it had always been there. The man stepped back on his side and gestured politely, palm up, inviting me to look. I didn't want to, but my eyes moved anyway. The living room behind him was mine. Not similar, not close. Mine. Same couch, same coffee table, same scuffed spot on the floor where I dropped a pan weeks earlier. But everything looked older, slightly warped, like a memory that had been lived in too long. You see it now, he said. We've been sharing it. The wall was gone, not removed, reassigned. Where brick had been, there was drywall. Where drywall had been, there was brick. The apartment no longer had a clear edge. My living room flowed into his the way rooms do in old houses that were remodeled badly, doorways added where none should exist. I staggered back and hit the couch. It dipped under my weight. So did the one behind him. We both looked down. The cushions compressed in perfect sync. His smile finally broke into something like relief. That was the hard part, getting it to line up. My phone buzzed. No signal, no bars. Still, the screen lit up. A notification from my landlord. Lease update available. Before I could stop myself, I opened it. The address was the same. The unit number wasn't. What used to be listed as Rear Unit 1B now read Interior Unit Shared. Occupants. My name. Name unavailable. I backed away, shaking my head. I'm leaving. He nodded. You tried that. I turned for the door. It was still there. Same frame, same handle. But when I opened it, I didn't see the hallway. I saw brick. Solid. Unbroken. the same wall I'd stared at for months. Except this time, there was no window. Not on my side. Doors are like windows, he said gently. They only work if both sides agree. Behind me, a chair scraped. Not dragged, pulled into place. I felt the couch shift as someone sat down beside me. The cushion dipped. Warmth spread through the fabric. I didn't turn my head. Outside, somewhere far away, traffic passed. People slept. The city kept time without me. At 3:01 a.m., the window faded. At 3:02, the wall finished settling. By morning, the apartment was quiet again. Normal. Too normal. When the landlord came by later that week, she frowned at the layout, said she didn't remember the living room being so deep, asked if I'd moved the furniture. I said no. She nodded and left. At night, I still sit on the couch. Sometimes I feel the cushion dip beside me. Sometimes I hear a chair scrape softly, just behind the wall that shouldn't exist. I don't look anymore, because I've started to understand something. The man isn't watching me through the window now. He doesn't need to. From his side, this has always been his apartment. And every night at 3 a.m., when the building goes quiet and the walls relax, I feel him settle in comfortably and watch the only strange thing left in the room. Me.